Hey, I'm Gary Strigler, and we're back at my shop. Today I want to share something a little bit more in depth that I've covered before, and that is changing the knives on a benchtop planer. Now, first of all, I'm going to guess that a great majority of woodworkers and trim carpenters already own a benchtop planer. If you don't, you really seriously ought to consider buying one, because a benchtop planer where it's got sharp knives, you can run something through it and you really don't even need to sand, just very, very light sanding. Also, you can run multiple pieces through and know that when you're done, they're going to be the same thickness. Now, a little bit of a tip, because like all planers, there's a feed roller on each side of the cutter head, so when you're going into the planer and when you're coming out, there's only one feed roller holding it down. So if you'll put just a little bit of pressure up when you're feeding in, a little bit of pressure up when it's coming out, you'll at least reduce the chances of getting sniped. Now, one of the other things that I like to do is I will generally say, I'm going to do most of my planing on, say, the right side of the planer. I'm going to try to save this left side for final cuts where it's going to stay the sharpest. A good way to keep blades sharp to begin with is trying to make sure that you don't run anything that's dirty, and for sure nothing that has a chance of having a little bit of a piece of grit or something in it, because once that happens, you're going to have a nick in your knife, and that's going to continue. But I do want to show you, this is a replacement knife. And the big holes are for bolting in place, but this small oblong hole, there's a couple pins that this sits on, and so if I did get a nick, I could loosen up one knife and slide it to one side, and now those nicks don't line up anymore, and I'm going to go back to getting a clean cut. I would also want to share that one time, these are like two-edged, so if you take them to get them sharpened, which I did one time, it costs just about as much to have them sharpened as it does to get a new set, which I kind of hate to say throw things away, but it's not a lot of advantage to get them sharpened. Now, the other thing that those those oblong holes do is they make it so that when you drop this knife in the planer, there's only one place it can fit, so there's not a lot of lining up. Some bigger planers and joiners, you need to have a gauge to set them or something, but one of the beauties of these benchtop planers is once you drop that knife in, they're lined up as close as they possibly can be. Now, I've already removed the top, and I removed this piece, so this is just a bit that's the same as as this, the handle that comes with it, so it's a little bit faster taking those screws out using it. One time, there's kind of a happy place. One time I actually had one of these bolts back out and it ruined the gib and made a real mess, so you got to make sure you got them tight when we're putting them back, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But like I said, it is a little bit faster than going by hand taking them out. Now, this handle that comes with it's got a couple magnets, so I can just do this and lift this knife out. If it's a new set, I'd push this away and put it, but what I would do is simply spin that and put it back in there. Now, there was a little arrow in there, and that was showing me from the first time I put the blades in which way they went in here. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll now put some kind of a mark, an X or something. What that's going to tell me, and you just have to develop your own system, but what that's going to tell me is, both sides of that knife, once I tighten this up, have been used. And again, it just dropped right in those pins. I'm going to just kind of demonstrate that little bit of side-to-side motion is what would allow you to get a nick out. Now that that's in there, I'm going to take, and you do want to make sure there's no dust or anything, in the way. I'm going to take that out. Now, it's really important because once upon a time I also got some of these cross thread. You know, I pretty much made every mistake you can make. I want to twist these in here by hand, because it's pretty much impossible for me to at least get them started by hand. Pretty much impossible for me to put enough pressure on it to cross thread them going by hand. You definitely wouldn't want to do anything like put Loctite or anything like that on these, because as long as you've got them in there, I've never had it. Let's see, that one right there is feeling a little bit funky. I'm just going to take this. Yeah, okay, so that's going on in. And probably the reason those are a couple of them are a little bit tight is because there's probably a little bit of sawdust or something in there. But now that I've got those all in there, I could take, if I wanted to, and this kind of depends on how big a hurry you are, I could take this impact and kind of just take them in, but I have to be careful, because if I get them impact in there too tight, then it's going to be hard to get them back out. So probably the safest thing is just to only use the impact when you're taking them out. So I'm just going to take this, and sometimes I've wondered, I don't know if you remember, when you're changing a tire, you're supposed to kind of tighten ones that are across from each other first. I honestly don't know so I'm just going to take that up to where when it starts to get hard to turn, I'm going to stop. But you do got to make sure that you got them all snugged up. One of the things too that I want to mention, because I also made this mistake once, when you go to buy a set of knives, at least from Dewalt, there's two different sizes. There's a 13. This is a 13-inch planer, and the other one is a 12. They both do a great job, especially when they got new knives in them. But you don't want to go grab the wrong set of knives. Make sure if you've got a 13-inch planer, you're at 13 set of knives. One of the things I'm going to do actually right here, because you can kind of get messed up, is I'm just going to take and put a blue mark. As I'm going around, I'll know, okay, that blue one's one I've already flipped over. Because, if your cell phone happens to ring or it kind of twists on you or something, you can find yourself going, oh man, which one have I turned over and which one I haven't? And although this isn't terrible hard to do, it's not something you want to do a couple extra times. At any rate, I just started on one side and went to the other. I don't know if it makes any difference. I mean, I sure wouldn't object to anybody that said, oh, I want to do one on each end and then do one in the middle and get the others. But anyway, just about to get this done. You want to be really careful, because you can cut yourself on these knives. This planer, unlike the 12-inch, the 12-inch one has something that locks it in place. This one doesn't. And that is really giving me fits over there on that side. All right. I may even try and back it out and see if I can put just a little bit of something in there to lubricate it. Now, it is possible, the ones that I screwed up, I just took it to a machine shop, and they actually went in and tapped the holes out, and just ran a tap in there, I guess, and brought it back. They didn't have the same screws, but anyway, this is where you really wouldn't want to be using the impact, because I could impact that in there super quickly and make a really big mess really fast. And you might even want to consider wearing gloves doing this. I usually just try to be super careful. All right. that got to where I wanted to be. Okay, so then all I have to do is take this piece, put it back in. Of course, well, I would do that 3 times. But at any rate, you just put this piece in, twist it down, put these 3 pieces back, like so. As I can find it. There's the other one. So, it's really important to get these tightened down, because if you get just a little, if it's not totally tightened down, there's a lot of, I don't know if you call it pressure or whatever in there when you're planing, and you can get one little chip coming out, and the next thing you know, this whole cavity is full of chips, which is not good. So anyway. All right, then we just throw the top back on, tighten these screws down, and we're done. Again, benchtop planers are amazing tools. When you got a sharp set of knives in them, they'll really do a great job. And I'm going to say this, I know my friends at Dewalt probably don't care for this. I have in the past successfully just switched one of the 3 knives out, and it goes back. It's sort of the same thing as sliding the knife side to side. It goes back to the sharp knife, cleans up where the dull knives aren't, but the blades aren't terribly expensive, so it might be a better idea not to be a cheapskate and just go ahead and replace all 3 of them, then you get to flip them one time. But at any rate, if you don't have one of these benchtop planers, you really ought to think about getting one.